seconder usually when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this can pick a number, get online, and kiss my ass.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the legal services provided by other lawyers. I'm Harry Still, backwoods Southern lawyer. I have my two partners here with me today, Mr. Ripp.
Yes, sir.
Here in Baldwin County. And Raines, you're over in Houston. And are you guys feeling anything from Hurricane Delta?
Little breeze, that's about it. And you can almost hear the screams of woe and jargon on the air as the people of Lake Charles buckle down for another one.
Boy, I feel sorry for them, boy. This second punch is really going to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've got some good news for you guys.
All right.
Y'all ready for some good news?
Yeah.
Sure.
Of all weekends, red snapper season has been extended.
Huh.
I guess it's midnight tonight through midnight Sunday. And, of course, we have a hurricane in the Gulf, so their small craft advisor, I don't know who the hell's going to get out there and get after him, but it's not going to be me. Let's put it that way. But,
I wouldn't be getting out on the water right now.
A little good news. Also, and before we get to our COVID numbers, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Alabama municipal elections. The runoffs were October 6th. And we had a bit of a surprise here in Baldwin County, or at least it was a surprise to me. The city of Spanish Fort, their mayor was successful in defending his position.
Slapping Mike went back in.
Did that shock you a little bit, Mr. Ripp?
It did. It just makes you wonder, if you're going to slap a woman, best place to do it is in Fairhope or Spanish Fort, because it seems like you can do it in either place and get away with it. It does defy logic that you would vote for a mayor that did something like that. I mean, I can't understand why he wouldn't have had to leave the next day, to be honest with you. Here's what I'm waiting on, Harry. What I'm waiting on now is ultimately how they're going to quash this in the legal system, okay, how it's going to evaporate.
So Raines, I propose that we rename Spanish Fort Conneryville. Are you familiar with Sean Connery being on the record about this?
Yeah, I seem to recall.
What you said. It's not the worst thing to slap a woman now and then. As I remember, you said you don't do it with a clenched fist. It's better to do it with an open hand. Mm. Yeah, remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I didn't love that.
I haven't changed my opinion.
You haven't?
No, not at all.
You think it's good to slap a woman?
No, I don't think it's good.
You don't think it's bad?
I don't think it's that bad. I think that it depends entirely on the circumstances and if it merits it. Yeah.
What would merit it?
Well, if you have tried everything else, and women are pretty good at this,
forgot about that part.
they can't leave it alone. They don't want to have the last word, and you give them the last word, but they're not happy with the last word. They want to say it again and get into a really provocative situation. Then I think it's absolutely right.
So what would...
Give me a break, man.
I forgot about that part where he said, well, sometimes.
That's like saying...
You give them the last word, and they don't want to accept the last word, then you give them the last word.
That's it, man. Done. Oh, God. I wonder if you get that in marriage counseling.
Yeah, so that's
but anyway,
a very uncomfortable subject.
Yeah.
But how in the heck?
No kidding. I mean, it does make you wonder when people are voting for people what they're thinking, And
it was it a knife fight, Paul, or was it pretty close?
No.
Was it close? I don't think it was close, was it? He won by a couple hundred votes.
No, I'm not sure on that one, but no, it wasn't close. He won handily. So
All right,
that's
let's
what,
have it. So
so
you,
like I
yeah,
said,
it was, yeah, I saw Gabe Tynes tweet about that. Yeah, he won not by a landslide, but by a very, very good majority.
right, right. Well, like I said, I'm waiting now to see, because you know we've had DUI charges and other things just evaporate. You know, so I'm waiting to see now legally where the charges are going to go against the mayor now that he is going to be mayor. You know, and how that will stack up to, say, you or I slapping a woman and getting charged with assault.
all right, so Robin Lejeune,
That was
he
a
pulled
good
it
one.
out of the fire. How about
That
that?
was a good one. Of course, we were pulling for Lejeune, and
Yeah.
he won handily. He won by over 1,000 votes, which was a surprise to me, actually.
How many
because
people are in Daphne? 20,000?
I think it's like that, but they threw money in this thing. I mean, they threw a lot of money in there. Catalyst and Scott Boone Consulting, they wanted control of Daphne just like they do Fairhope. So now at least they've been relegated to just Fairhope. And the difference is that Daphne's looking at development and saying, hey, wait a minute, we need to slow this down. And now Fairhope is looking at development and saying, oh, we embrace it. So you're going to see two different philosophies at work here for the next 4 years. And my prediction is that you're going to find postage stamp subdivisions all through Fairhope. But we'll see what happens.
Hey, before you move on to COVID, I got something I want to put out. I want to preach for a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, by all means.
You know, something we talk about around this house is my own fatherly version of a new negotiated code of chivalry that you should live under. My son is not taught it's not okay to hit a woman. My son is not taught it's not okay to not hold a door for a woman. He's not taught any of those things. If he asked me a while back, he goes, is it ever okay to just haul off and hit a woman? And my explanation to him is, son, it's not ever okay to haul off and hit anybody.
Right.
All right. That's the point. You don't haul off and smack somebody. That's wrong. I'm not teaching my son that women are some other class that deserve a different code of conduct than men do. He says, well, shouldn't you hold a door open for a woman? Son, you should hold a door open for everybody. Should you walk on the outside of the curb to keep a woman from getting splashed by a passing carriage? Son, you should do that for your friends. You should do that for anybody if that's the kind of code you want to live by.
And especially if you want to get laid, you should do all those things.
You should, but it's easier to practice that with everyone.
Well, if you're teaching your son something practical, Paul Ripp, don't look at me like that.
Well, that was the last thing that was coming into my mind. That's all.
And it comes down, he goes, I really want to know, is it ever okay to hit a woman? I said, son, when you're defending yourself, it's okay to hit anybody. When you have to get yourself out of a bad situation and somebody's attacking you, you hit everybody that you can reach. And you don't think about that because I don't want you thinking about things. It's never okay to haul off and smack anybody.
Right.
But when it comes down to a situation where you've got to defend yourself, everybody's eligible.
Correct.
You know what I mean? I said, son, I've been stabbed. I had a bottle broke over the back of my head by a woman. And I'm telling you right now, don't ever let yourself be limited by chivalry when it comes to getting yourself out of a bad situation.
Run.
Indeed.
And the thing that he learns is, most importantly, how to avoid getting into situations like that.
Right. Well,
right. I recall one of Rain's strong suits as being able to talk his way out of a sticky situation or a tight spot, or so yeah, you should definitely pass that along to Yulee.
Doing our best.
Well, I mean, haul off and slap a woman. My God in heaven, I don't know what they'd have to do for me to do that.
Well, I don't know, but you just think about her daddy and her brothers, or your daddies and your brothers, and there's lots of things to consider when applying violence to a situation.
Right.
And where the fair sex is involved, that's just a bad idea.
Right. But anyway.
But there's some people that need an ass whipping.
Oh God, I'm telling you, there sure is. On
a slippery slope there.
But I am glad to see Lejeune and Daphne. I think that's going to be very, very important. And I was glad to see that he won by 1,000 votes.
All right, I got to do some COVID numbers. Get this mess out of the way.
All right.
Globally, 36,669,000 cases with 1,063,000 deaths. The United States, 7,620,000 cases confirmed with 213,600 deaths.
This morning, Alabama was the only state with a
That's right.
downward trend. The only state in the United States. Did you see that, Ryan?
I did. There was 3 states yesterday, and Alabama was one of them. But
Yeah.
today, Alabama's the only man standing
Yeah.
on a downward trend. I think that's fantastic. I think that's and I will give credit where credit is due. I think that's a feather in the hat of Governor Kay Ivey.
I do too.
Well, Alabama's got 163,000 cases with 2,600 deaths.
And given that the compliance in this area is most of the stores in the buildings, they have it up, wear a mask, but leave it up to anybody else and they're not. So if everybody was far more compliant, God knows how much more they could drive it down. But again, I think Alabama gets a sense of false security because of the lack of density. And that's what is hand in hand with COVID is density.
That is true. But I'll tell you, I've got to hand it to Governor Ivey. She has led that state.
Yeah.
Once she finally got on board, she took a real good role in leadership. And I'm telling you, leadership matters with this thing.
Absolutely. And I agree. I think she's done a very good job. Well, that brings us to the evacuation notices, huh, Harry? How that went last time.
Oh, my God.
With Sally, we didn't have an evacuation notice, and then at the 11th hour, I think the sheriff was trying to get an evacuation notice, and by that time it was too late because it would have caused complete chaos on the highways. Yep. So This time what happened is when Delta looked like it was aiming at us on Sunday, everybody just said, we ain't taking a chance. I'm telling you, Home Depot, Lowe's, Publix, gas stations, it was nuts on Monday. And
I'm going to tell you on Monday, I had it in my head that you guys might catch it.
Yeah, I did too.
Really did.
We all did.
I did too, but I did know that your best accurate track is going to be after it's left the Yucatan and in the Gulf.
And always trust the European model.
Yeah, once it's in the Gulf, then you get a little bit better idea where it's going to hit.
All right, so let me give you my breakdown of what happened here this week. So the governor was asked by our local government officials to issue an evacuation order about 6 hours before Sally hit. And, of course, there wasn't time to issue an order and expect anybody to comply. So because she's dealing with a bunch of incompetent people down here, she can't trust them to let her know when they need something. She has to operate on information that she has available to her, and she took the path of a cautious path. And she didn't order an evacuation. She ordered that all of the visitors leave Baldwin County.
Correct.
So I thought that was a good move. And like I said, when you got a bunch of local government people who can't seem to make a decision and all they care about is how much money's rolling in down here, we're going to continue to have situations like this where the governor has to shoot from the hip.
I don't think that. I think Baldwin County does not have a very good reputation on Goat Hill, to be honest with you.
All right. Well,
Let me tell you something, Harry. I don't know if you remember this. There was a guy named Allison DeFore down in Key Largo, and he was the sheriff of Monroe County for during the Conk Republic years. And he was a practicing attorney because he was an attorney before he got elected sheriff, and he was an attorney after. He and I talked a lot about evacuation and stuff like that because he had actually been good friends with the man who was the emergency management director in Mississippi at the time when I lived there. But this is when we worked in the Keys. But and then 2 years later, when I was working as a newspaper reporter down there, he and I talked about Keys evacuations. And Monroe County doesn't issue evacuation orders for the Keys. They always issue visitor evacuation orders. Like, we need all the visitors out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they turn the damn water and power off for safety purposes. I know they do the electricity.
They do turn the water off, but not the power, because they're a water co-op, and they turn the water off, and that's not to enforce the evacuation order. That's a 60s thing. That's still a holdover. But Allison said you cannot evacuate the Keys because the overwhelming majority of people that live in the Keys don't have vehicles, and the people that do, it would clog up the highway getting out of the Keys so much that even if you issued the evacuation 48 hours before the storm hit, you'd never get everybody out. And it would create a problem where there's people on the road while the storm's hitting. And I took that to heart. And I remember during Katrina, they issued the evacuation order for Jackson County, Mississippi, like 4 days before the hurricane hit there. And they said everybody that can get out needs to fucking get out. And they did that. It was 4 days out. And they said, if you haven't evacuated by T-minus 48, don't try. Because you won't be able to get out. They contraflowed the highways and everything else. There's just too many people to get out. And there were people running out of gas. Because the infrastructure
sitting on the interstate.
Gas stations, and you've got people stranded on a highway during a major hurricane, they're going to die. And that comes with evacuate. People think that the evacuation orders are just, they just pull the trigger on that. No, that's a Herculean task.
Yeah.
And you're not just thinking about, let's get everybody out that we can. No, you have to think about who's going to be stuck on the highway. Are there hotels for people to evacuate to? Where are they going to go? There's a logistics issue there that's just Sisyphean, Anyway.
All right, I'm switching gears. The vice presidential debate, the fly, the allegation, and the truth.
I'm speaking, sir.
The fly.
Shit.
The fly seemed to get a lot of attention.
All right, okay.
Paul, did you see the official Russian interference communication on who won the debate? I said first place was Senator Harris, second place was Vice President Pence, and the honorable mention went to the fly and whoever that was coughing through the whole fourth quarter, or whoever that was sneezing during the whole fourth quarter that you could hear in the background. Somebody was going, woohoo!
It's only 7 people in the room, and it was somebody with a whooping cough.
Oh,
I swear
really?
It tickled me.
One
Hope
thing.
they had their mask on.
So the allegation or her comment was that this administration, the COVID, the Whitehouse task force on SARS-CoV-2 has been the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of this country. Now,
I think
go read the Treaty of Fort Jackson or some other things that have happened. There have been worse things that have happened, but this has been pretty damn terrible. The response and the level of testing and the mixed messages from this administration. And
we are the worst nation in the world as to how we handled this.
Well, and we've been preaching that from day one.
Yeah. 4% of the population and 20% of the cases.
And then, of course, speaking of fresh medical stories, our 74-year-old president has recovered completely from COVID-19, according to him.
That is an outright lie.
Now, if you're doing fantastic, they don't put you on a helicopter and put you on oxygen and put you on remdesivir. That was developed down here at UAB. I know it's not normal protocol. It's still considered experimental. But you don't do that if they aren't worried about your health.
No.
Your doctors.
Yep.
And if he has been cured of COVID in less than 4 or 5 days, this whole thing, then he's the only one in the world that we know.
Well, I hate to do a Pencean tactic here, but let's circle back to the thing we were talking about 2 minutes ago.
Okay.
One of the things I think that Senator Harris wanted to get across, and I don't know if she held back on it because of time constraints or what. The political analyst in me kind of questions why they held back on it. Is that she had the opportunity to paint the politicization, the politicization of what I'm trying to say is the politicalization, which is not a word. It's politicization, but it doesn't sound the same. The political spin of the handling of the administration's coronavirus response was done with the task force meetings that they would televise every day. And it turned into political rallies every single time. And she could have really attacked that, said, look, you were the chairman of a task force that was supposed to get a handle on this thing, and all you did was allow the president to turn them into political charades every day for about 38 consecutive days.
Well, I think
that could have been a coffin nail.
Maybe, but okay, so play the debate back in your head and recall Senator Harris saying, I'm on the Senate Intelligence Committee. I know blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there saying, so you're telling me you didn't get briefed on the coronavirus? Seriously?
They got briefed on the coronavirus.
But not in February? You're saying it was much later?
The Senate Intelligence Committee gets monthly reports, and they got briefed on it in March.
Okay, well, it ain't like she was Paul Ripp sitting down here in Fairhope and didn't know what wasn't being informed.
You would be surprised. You would be surprised because a senator's job is not necessarily threat assessment. And if you're sitting on the Senate Intelligence Committee, you're given a report, and every month there's a disease report in it, a pandemic possibility report in it. And these people were made aware of it by March, but by then it had gotten so big that they were clued in on it. Now the Gang of Eight was briefed on it in February.
Okay, so Raines, why am I listening to some sycophantic little Yankee son of a bitch like Fauci, who obviously cares more about keeping his position at NIH than he does telling people the truth? And I know he's everybody's hero. I don't like him. I don't think he's been truthful.
What did he not tell the truth about?
Well, he could have just said I have been ordered, just like I'm a soldier, just like I'm a lieutenant. I've been ordered to do this by the commander in chief. I don't think that anything that's coming out of this committee is accurate, and you should listen to me. Instead of sparring with the president and having to go on Morning Joe so somebody will ask him a straight question.
Well, I think a lot of that was in the very beginning was trying to figure out what they were dealing with, and he is the commander in chief. You are under him. You're working with him supposedly, so I can see where a little bending in the beginning.
Well, I think Fauci has done a terrible job along with the rest of the task force, but that doesn't make me a Biden supporter.
Okay,
I don't agree with that, and I'll tell you why.
Okay,
because Dr. Anthony Fauci recognized his role in this pandemic early on, and he had to do what he had to do because he basically was dancing a waltz in a minefield.
When's the last time he's been in a lab?
Fauci's in a lab every day. You joking?
Yeah, I'd love for somebody to follow him around and see what he does all day.
Look, wait a minute now. Fauci has a incredible resume.
Right, and he's another boomer like all these others who won't go away. Let's not take NIH. Let's take the University of Mississippi. How old is the president of the University of Mississippi? I'll guarantee you he's a baby boomer.
Well, okay, let's cut to the chase. Who do you think has given
not some
the
guy in his
best-
70s. I want some guy that's in there burning it up in the lab every day. Somebody about my age who ought to be running NIH. Not some guy that has to drink prune juice to get out of bed every morning.
But right now, who would you listen to and believe about the coronavirus?
The CDC guidelines, now that they've amended them again. I mean, you'd have to be a damn caveman not to understand that coronavirus or SARS-CoV-2 is passed through particulates in the air. You know, they've amended that 3 or 4 times. Is a mask good or not? I don't know, Paul. I'm going to stick with what I know and go read the manual from the 1918 flu pandemic. And I'll stick with that, and I'll stay away from people, and I'll wash my hands, and I'll wear a mask, and I'll do things that we should all do when we're faced with a novel disease that we don't know what the long-term effects are.
I've done very well in my life listening to the doctors and scientists, so I think I'll go stick with that.
Says the guy who got sprayed with Agent Orange. Didn't you get kidney cancer from Agent Orange?
Well, yeah, but I mean, nobody told us. Nobody told us anything.
Keep making my point for me.
Nobody told us.
I'll tell you what. I'll use a military analogy for that. And I knew a guy many years ago. He's passed away now, but he was a retired general in the Air Force. And he served pretty close to the damn throne back in the day when he was a general. He served under Curtis LeMay when Curtis LeMay was Secretary of Defense. All right, under Kennedy, and he said his main job in the last 5 years that he served in the Air Force was to make sure that LeMay didn't start World War III. That was his job. He had to filter LeMay's comments. He had to filter LeMay's information. He had to do everything he could to keep LeMay on track because LeMay wanted to start World War III with the Soviet Union. And his job was to do that. And to do that, he had to waltz around in a minefield every day and not get fired by General LeMay. And at the same time, still have a backdoor line to the president to say, all right, this is really what we need to be doing. Don't listen to General LeMay about this. Don't send an airstrike into Cuba to destroy those missiles, even though that's what LeMay is recommending, because it'll start World War III. That's what Anthony Fauci is doing. He recognized early on that if I do something and say something to get shit canned by this president, there's going to be nobody.
Do you remember what Walt Maddox said? He said, "I'd rather not be mayor and be on the right side of this thing." That's Fauci's problem. He would rather be the director of the NIH. He thinks if I'm not here, I can't make any changes. So I'll bend like a reed in the wind. Well, that's not what he's there to do.
He's tap dancing in a minefield because he wants to stay there because he knows.
Because he's a political animal.
Okay, so your choice is A, believe Trump, or B, believe Fauci.
So here's my problem with it. I'm going to take you back to the last presidential debates where they asked Trump, Mr. President, please tell us that you renounce white supremacy. Okay, which he's done several times before. He did it in the 2016 debates, and I don't know who the damn Proud Boys are. I'm sure, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center Backstory Podcast, is a suspicious organization they're keeping an eye on. But
not according to PLC.
What I'm getting at is we had a terror plot foiled, and in response, the governor of Michigan says, well, this is all because the president didn't say in the last debate. What a bunch of crap. These look at these guys. You think any of them are going to split the atom anytime soon, Mr. Ripp?
Well, no, but I do
Everybody
believe.
And you think they acted because the president dodged a question?
Well,
and I would have and I'm not saying I would have dodged it too. I'm just saying I would have said asked and answered. I mean, how many times am I going to have to? Of course, he's not smart enough to do that. He has to argue with everybody.
As president of the United States, you've got to be responsible for what you say and how you say it. And you have to understand that some people listening to you are trying to listen in a way that they want to be supported. So you might have fanatical groups like this.
So the Michigan militia or some radical, what do they call themselves, the Wolf Pack or something nutty?
Wolverine. Badger or something.
So anyhow, these guys that like to run around the woods and shoot guns, I will tell you from a lawyer perspective, you know, it's a conspiracy, and the reason that you keep hearing that, they went out and they cased the governor's beach house, and they tested an improvised explosive device, anti-personnel or whatever. Those are all overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy. So
correct. That's the same stuff.
That's the ding, ding, ding that you're waiting to hear through the news report when they talk about the overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy, and that's how you dragnet a bunch of guys. Of course, this was all a FBI informant, some guy on the inside, and you just wonder if they're the ones that gave them the stuff to blow up or not.
Well, the
No. The FBI informant came on extremely late in this investigation, according to the brief.
right.
Well, hey, man,
right.
you're the expert. Tell us about it.
The FBI issued an order to have an FBI agent infiltrate the group like a month ago, and the plot was undertaken 2 months ago, and so he was in for the. He basically got in there to confirm everything that had already been done. You understand? He got put in there not to say, okay, guys, let me help you put this plot together. He basically got put in there to confirm what the FBI
to make sure it's not the plot of the Taylor of Panama, where it's just somebody feeding them a bunch of bullcrap.
Informant was put in there. They said, look, we've got all of our ducks in a row on this investigation. We know these are the things that happen. If we want this to be a slam dunk, we need to get somebody in there to confirm it all firsthand. And that's what they did. It's not like a murder for hire plot where the person getting hired to do the murder was an informant. No, that agent was put in there to confirm everything they basically already knew.
This
because
is
they want dunk for the indictment.
You know, this is in the United States. I remember when wasn't it David Duke and them were gonna, where were they gonna go? Haiti, Dominican, what?
They were gonna go to Haiti.
Yeah, they were gonna go to Haiti and take over Haiti. Remember that?
Yeah.
I don't know if they've been there, but it's like 90% African American.
90 is much
Or
more
they're
than
not
that.
African
It's the
Americans, they're
poorest-
African
It's one of
Haitians.
the poorest countries in the entire world. But you're talking about a group that thinks they're going to kidnap the governor, possibly kill her, and then take over the government. What the hell? What are they smoking?
Let me speak to Harry's point with one of my famous Russian history analogies. When I was in college, I briefly flirted with the idea of being a high school football coach, because I really looked up to the coaches I had in high school. And while I was there, I was taking classes on how to, coach kids and things like that. And I took on a practicum where I actually had to go for 2 seasons and work on the coaching staff as a volunteer for 2 different schools. One of them was my alma mater, and I was at the middle school. And my job was with the 7th graders on the middle school team, and I was teaching them basic football and how to do things. I was in charge of that whole squad, and I was giving them a speech, because I'm a hell of a speech maker. I don't know if you know that, but I was giving them a good old speech one day about what they've got to do to get good, and part of it was just motivating them to go get up and don't be afraid to do great things. Well, where we practiced was on the practice field way far away from the main football field. That's where the high school was running scrimmage drills that particular day. And they're all in no pads and everything. And I said, you see over there? I said, that guy over there in the red vest, because the quarterback wore a red vest so nobody would tackle him. That guy over there in the red vest, if you want to be somebody, you got to go after the guy in the red vest. That's what's got to be done. And I really blew that up. Well, guess what? About 10 minutes later, I hear about every whistle in the county going off, and I look over there, and one of my little 7th graders has gone over there and from the back tackled the starting quarterback of the high school. And he threw the football and hit the kid in the head and everything else. I'm about to whip that little boy's ass. And boy, every whistle you could imagine blowing was blowing. Even my coaches were blowing the whistle. And I was going, what in the Sam hell just happened? And then they informed me that little boy told the head coach of the high school football team, he said, if I want to get start, I got to come tackle the guy in the red vest. Now, who got in trouble that day? You think it was that kid?
Nope.
No, sir. It was me that got in trouble that day.
So you're saying
That's
little
what I have to
children
say
and,
about
and militia people are very simplistic, and so they went after the governor because she was in the red jersey?
I'm saying that somebody says to them, rise up and liberate this state. And that's exactly what they did. And I guarantee you that's going to come up in court.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah.
so talk to us about the 25th Amendment, man.
Oh, God. I tried to explain the 25th Amendment to my mechanic the other day. I don't know if you guys remember me talking about my mechanic. He's a dyed-in-the-wool Republican.
So the Speaker of the House is the third person in succession to the presidency. It goes the president, vice president, speaker
of the House.
And then eventually, if you watch Battlestar Galactica, it's the Secretary of Education or something like that. At 27th in line.
You're confusing the 25th Amendment with the continuity of government clause. The continuity of
government all works
clause
together, man.
If people die, this is who ends up president.
Right. 25th is more about removal. I get it. Yeah.
The 25th is more about transference of power. And it has to do with, we had a couple of instances in the very near past where presidents were incapacitated for periods of time. And there was no constitutional framework for what to do in that situation. To give you an example, the top two that you have there are the Bushes. Bush 1 under Reagan, he assumed the presidency of the United States when President Reagan had to have some polyps removed.
No, when he got shot by Hinckley.
No. This was before that.
Okay.
He was made president for about 18 hours in 1989 when President Reagan had to go under anesthesia to get a procedure done on his upper GI or his lower GI. That used the 25th Amendment. When President George H.W. Bush went under for a colonoscopy, Vice President Dick Cheney for 8 hours was president of the United States. They used the 25th Amendment to be a seamless transference of power between the two. That's what it was created. It was created mainly because in the bottom picture, you look at Hoover and you look at Roosevelt. Roosevelt's riding in the car, and that person in the front seat is actually Blackjack John Pershing. But Roosevelt had a stroke in the middle of World War II, and nobody knew about it because they didn't want anybody to know. He had already had enough shit from being a president in a wheelchair. They definitely didn't want anybody to know that the president was knocked out of action during a war. So the vice president took over. Harry Truman took over for a period of time. It was about 2 weeks, and they just didn't tell anybody about it. Well, they said, it's during a war, so I guess that's okay, that we don't have to be upfront with the American people about it. Well, then it came around again, and the same thing had happened to President Eisenhower. And President Eisenhower had a heart attack while he was in office. And he was down for about 4 days, and his vice president was anybody?
Nope.
It was the first time Richard Nixon became president. Richard Nixon was vice president for Eisenhower.
Oh, yeah. All right.
And he was president for about a week because the president was knocked out. He was basically in a medically induced coma after his heart attack. Well, there was no constitutional framework at the time for what do we do if this happens? And they said, look, we've already had this happen too many times. It happened to President Woodrow Wilson back at the close of the First World War when he was when he was president at the armistice signing. He caught the Spanish flu, and he was down for a month and died from it. And the vice president at the time ran the country. He said, look, we've already had that happen with him. We had this happen with Roosevelt. And again, with Eisenhower, we've got to have some kind of framework for what to do to make it easy for the vice president to take over in situations like this. Modern methods had come around that we have anesthesia and things like that. So a little later on, they came up with the 25th Amendment. And the 25th Amendment says this is a seamless transfer of power from president to vice president and back if there arises a situation where the president is medically or mentally incapacitated. Now, they lined out the framework of the 25th Amendment, and it says it's incapacitated by medical means, which means if they have to go under for a procedure, if they get hit on the head and go unconscious, if they inhale too much CO2 and they're out for a couple of days. This is a seamless transfer of power that can say, all right, you know what? The vice president just signs a document and that's it. And when, most importantly, when the president comes out of it, they basically sign another document and it goes right back to where it was. That's constitutional framework for that. It also lays out a clause that says if a president is unable to fulfill their office duties, the cabinet or a legislative body can invoke the 25th Amendment and remove the president for that time. When they were writing it up, they were thinking that a president was having a bad reaction to anesthesia and had just gone a little bit nuts and couldn't govern still. They would have to invoke the 25th Amendment until he came to his senses.
All right, so right now Pelosi is wanting to use the 25th Amendment to come up with a panel of politicians who will decide when the president should be removed. Now, that's a bunch of political horse shit, and I'll say it if nobody else will.
Okay, you can call it that, but under the 25th Amendment, what she is doing is procedurally viable. She's not invoking the 25th.
It's open-ended. I understand. She's trying to come up with some other way to get a bunch of people up there so they can have a big discussion about what a terrible person and what a terrible president he is. I know exactly what they're doing.
The thing is, the clauses of the 25th Amendment don't cite the medical reason specifically, but it's basically built around if the president is taking a powerful steroid and it is clouding his judgment, that's what the 25th Amendment was built for. That clause of the 25th Amendment was built for that. She is invoking the 25th Amendment, not just by right, but by reason.
All right.
And she's not calling for a cabinet meeting to invoke the 25th Amendment. She's calling for a panel. She's poking the bear. She knows exactly what she's doing.
That's exactly right. She's not doing anything practical.
Right. But at the same time, you got to admit.
It illustrates this is what's happening. And this is what I was telling you guys about over the phone and everything else. Is like, I am interested in the political retribution for all of this. I am interested in how history is going to look at this particular political situation. I don't care who's in office. To me, they're just colors in a chart at this point. I'm wanting to see how those colors get shuffled around using the 25th Amendment if that becomes necessary, because that's the kind of thing. We're living in a situation that's a Brown versus Board of Education moment.
Trump will be in an iron lung before anybody invokes the 25th Amendment.
Oh, well, exactly. Not even in an iron lung, because you're still awake for an iron lung. It would have to be some kind of situation where the president's falling asleep at their desk.
Okay, so I got to switch gears on y'all.
And certainly right now, you're getting enough mixed messages that no one really clearly knows what his health is.
And we never will.
That's right.
That's the point. We will never know what his health is until he's taking a dirt nap.
This is that what will happen if this person passes away?
Correct.
4 days before the election or 4 days after.
Right.
That's what the real people who really study politics, that's what they're looking at. That's what I said.
That's when all you little bitches can step back. Us lawyers are going to figure it out.
Oh,
God.
Well,
that's
what we're going to do.
Oh, man.
There is no constitutional framework.
We shall save the republic once again, us lawyers.
Oh,
week of an election.
That's all we need, more lawyers.
Hey, so I got some news.
Mm-hmm.
Rains, can you see the screen here?
I see the screen, but you're not presenting.
Oh, I'm not. It says I am. So, anyway, County Road 95. You've been to the beach house, right? Down around Pirates Cove. So the road going down to the beach house that goes around Wolf Field, County Road 95, east of Wolf Bay. This morning, 2 white males' bodies were found dumped on the side of the road, or they were on the side of the road.
Oh, my God.
The Major Crimes Unit is there. I'm sure they'll have it cracked in no time. But it makes you wonder. So, you're driving along down there right before you get to Wolf Field. It kind of takes a little curve, and there's Fitzpatrick Road. That looks like where it is. And just past that is Fish Trap Road that goes off to Barber's Marina, which, of course, was whacked by Hurricane Sally pretty bad. So anyway, we'll keep you up on that. That was a little breaking news this morning.
Oh, wait. Speaking of breaking news, holy crap. The
What's
president just tweeted about it. Oh, my God. He said, it looks like we found some mail dumped on the side of the road in Baldwin County, Alabama. I'm sure they were ballots for Republicans. So wrong.
I don't think that's what they meant by males dumped on the side of the road.
Well, what about the latest news on Mr. John McAfee? People that have been
hold
following
on 1 second. You're getting ahead of me, Paul.
Okay.
Oh, it's not just never stop coming with that guy.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. All right. So what you got first?
Well, I have a photo that you're not going to see until later. But
right.
When you watch this episode, you're really going to like it. So Mr. McAfee, and this is according to the New York Times, John McAfee, an antivirus software pioneer who fled Belize in 2012 ahead of a murder investigation there. And, of course, Mr. Ripp had something to do with this. We'll throw the video up at the end of our video here, the trailer for the movie. But he has been detained in Spain on tax evasion charges. You know, that the tax evasion is when they can't get you on anything else, like Al Capone.
Correct. That's exactly what they got Al Capone on.
So, what do you think?
Well, what I think
Is this going to stick?
Yes. I think what happened is McAfee left the United States. When he left the States, he was bragging that he was running from the IRS. He was blogging about it and kept on and on. He was antagonizing the government about it. He ended up in Dominican Republic, thrown in jail for a few days for having weapons on a boat. Then he ends up in England, and that's where he set up his base of operations. And McAfee is also born in England. He's an English citizen. So I think probably what happened was...
How did he run for president?
Easy. It's the United States, man. Anybody can run for president.
You got to be born here to run for president. You can't be naturalized.
Libertarian?
Nope, doesn't matter. Schwarzenegger can't run for president, even though he was governor.
That's a good point, but he did. He
did run for president. I didn't know. He might have been in the Air Force.
He was born
his father might have been in the Air Force.
I know he was born in England because it isn't but about 30 miles from where I was born. But anyway, I think what happened is, and this is a little bit of speculation on my part, but he might have been a little bit more difficult to extradite him on a income tax thing out of England. So I think what they did was they had him under surveillance, and then that surveillance, as soon as he left the country, went to Spain, probably to mess around or play around Ibiza or one of those places. That's when they popped him. Now, another thing that was interesting is that this came out of the courts in Tennessee. And that's where he had connections last in the United States. He was living up right outside Nashville, not too far. But now he is a high risk of running. So I think that what's happened is he may have come to the end of his rope. I think he's going to be thrown in jail. He's going to be denied bail. And at 74, 75 years old, I think he's going to be given a sentence that might be a life sentence because he could get 5 or 10 years and he may not have that much left. So we'll see what happens. I do know that the estate of Gregory Fall, the gentleman that was killed in Belize, the one he was accused of, which I firmly believe he had something to do with.
Decapitated with a shotgun.
Anyway, no. He was, you're thinking of a different case. This guy was shot with a 9mm. Anyway, he...
From behind while he's watching TV.
Yeah, while he's watching TV.
Oh, I thought it was a shotgun.
And then they used
he was the one that McAfee
killed his dogs.
Right. But I do believe that this time he might wind up in jail and not being able to get out. Now, they did charge a bodyguard that was along with him, which is exactly what I thought that he had been doing for years, and that was using his wife, friends, and other people to receive money or put money in their name. And one of the things that they're looking at with him is the cryptocurrency, as well as selling his life story for some movie. Johnny Depp was supposed to be in it. I heard that's changed. But I think...
Not even Johnny Depp's that desperate.
Right. I think McAfee has maybe reached the end of his rope. It's going to be interesting to see what he pulls this time. Well deserved, because he was responsible for not one but 2 deaths in Belize.
So I don't know if I could say this. There's something I'd like to say, but I think I'll reserve it for private conversation between us. But this guy just will not go away.
I know.
Roy Moore. Oh, my God.
He and his horse Sally, what are they doing now?
So the 10 Commandments judge, who was removed from office by the federal courts, and he ran for, let's see, the last thing he did, he ran against he ran for Senate, and Doug Jones beat him because all these sexual misconduct allegations came out.
But he carried Fairhope. Go figure.
Well, anyway, another boomer who won't go away, he has filed a lawsuit against Meemaw, saying that her mask ordinance is unconstitutional.
Oh, man, I didn't see that.
Oh, you missed that one?
That's going to be a total waste of time.
Well, with most things where Judge Moore's involved, it is. But basically, the bottom line is the federal judge refuses to grant a restraining order against Alabama health officers related to the mask mandate. He'd asked for a temporary restraining order.
If he would just get on his horse and leave.
Oh, man. I mean, can you imagine being the governor and having to deal with people like him?
Right.
Constantly.
Yeah.
So speaking of local interest, has everybody seen the Tuberville campaign ad where he tells the guy to go to hell, get a job?
Oh, yes. I saw that.
Okay, that's going to be as effective as, do you remember the black and white ads that they ran against the Governor Siegelman's lottery campaign?
Yeah.
Where they were in the back room and you never saw anybody's face, but they're holding like a carafe of brandy, smoking cigars, and they say, "You won the lottery, Governor." It's almost that good. Like every time it comes on, I laugh my ass off. It's my favorite ad.
That's going to be an
Of course,
interesting...
he's going to win, and we have no earthly idea what any of his political leanings are. Other than he thinks burning an American flag you should be put in prison for.
I don't know. I got a feeling, you got a lot of really large areas that are going to go for Jones. He has really accomplished quite a bit in office, and being an independent, I'm looking at who's the most qualified. Certainly, he just completely strips Tuberville of any type of credibility or experience. The only thing Tuberville's doing is going to give the money to the veterans for his salary. I think that's decent.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest worry you have to have about Tuberville being elected is what's going to happen when you elect him and put him in office and start paying him, and he gets a 7-figure offer from the Florida legislature.
Right.
What's going to happen then? He gets a 7-figure offer from the Florida legislature. He's going to quit and move to Florida and be a Florida legislator because the money's better over there. I'm here to tell you that's what he did as a coach. So we'll see what happens.
So listen, he told the people of Mississippi they'd bury his ass in a pine box. That's the only way he's leaving Mississippi, in a pine box.
He left 3 weeks later.
3 weeks later, he was on a plane. He did the same thing at Texas Tech. He left a recruit at a dinner table to go take the job in Cincinnati, allegedly.
Yes, he did. Yes,
so
I think that's a bit of a tall tale, but it's a good tale.
Well,
if you read the recap of that, it's actually a good story. But I don't think he left him at the dinner table. But he literally, that was the last recruit he visited.
So then, there's this hedge fund he was involved in, and do you know what they were doing? They were buying spoiled food here in the United States and shipping it to countries where they don't give a shit what they sell their people for a profit. That was the scheme of the hedge fund.
Yeah.
And of course his partner allegedly did all the criminal activity. But of course all these people lost their life savings and got screwed out of their money.
We used to see that food come through in Central America a lot. Be out of date 2-3 days. Or
I mean, if you at the hunting camp and you got some treat or potted meat that's a little out of date, I don't see any problem with eating that. But I don't know if I'd send it to needy people in the third world, and you're not even giving it to them; you're selling it to them.
What the hell you eating? What kind of hell you hunting camp you running where there's treat on the shelf? Just buy it, spend the extra 25 cents and get the Spam, man.
I don't know. It's got a better flavor to it. When you're a connoisseur of preserved meats like I am.
Man, I can't believe you're downgrading Spam.
Oh,
wow.
Treat's far superior. Far superior.
Knock off Spam.
All right, so Paul, give me some lanyap stories, buddy.
Well, one of the lanyap stories is network not available. Mediacom still working to restore services. 36,000 devices were offline. And by September 28th, Mediacom reported a status of 5,305 modems offline, and with 95 separate outages. In the interim, Mediacom has provided a free Wi-Fi hotspot at the Fells Children Park in Fairhope to compensate for the service interruptions. So any of you that remember the 04 experience with Mediacom, it was a complete nightmare. Line replacement for the permanent infrastructure is underway and will continue as of today. 85 miles of our plant needs to be repaired. 85 miles of line. And one of the things I saw in Fairhope a lot is Mediacom's lines hanging so low that when they move into the neighborhood and try to pick up this debris, it's going to be a real problem, and no one is getting ahead of it and telling them, say, hey, you got to get this up, so where we can even get the trucks in there. So that's Mediacom and Fairhope, and damn the torpedoes of Rob Hobart trying to reason with the hurricane season and his forecast for Delta. Luckily, that didn't happen for us, but then again, let's say a prayer for those people in Lake Charles because they're going to get hammered. Then another article, should we bring back Bayfest in Mobile? A lot of people really would like to bring that back. First week in October is when they had it. Looks like these big music festivals, no matter where they are, I know Birmingham had one for years, Atlanta had a couple. They're just really hard to make money and keep going. But people in Mobile really want Bayfest to come back. In the lanyap, I'm highlighting these articles, people, so you really need to get your lanyap. You can get it online or get a free copy. But the one article that seems to be gaining speed here is Digging Deeper. Deputies search the home of the former housing authority. This is in the Bio-LaBattery area.
Let me nutshell this for Rain. So the Bio-LaBattery Housing Authority, about 15 years ago, the city owned these apartments, and they created a housing authority, deeded them to the housing authority. Then a few years ago,
2013, $18 million.
Okay, so a husband and wife team was hired to come in and straighten all this out. Turns out they're getting a combined salary from the housing authority of about $200,000 range. And so here's the kicker. They were the board had authorized to make a one-time lump sum retirement payment to them to the tune of how much, Paul?
$2.5 million in the lump sum.
So of course,
$2.5 million.
Because it's Mobile County, there's an actual investigation going on, and didn't everybody resign, Paul?
At the time, the housing authority members were Tony Collier, chairman, Marcia Stork, former Bio-LaBattery Police Chief Johnny Joyner, Annette Thornton, and Wilbur Scotty Scott. Since all of those members since then, all of those members have resigned, with the exception of Scott, who was still serving on the board when he passed away. So, in other words, the board is no more, and they approved a $2.5 million lump sum. So what has happened now is the Mobile County Sheriff's Department has executed search warrants this last Monday on the Sims home of Virginia Huddleston and Daniel Wilson, the couple that resigned as the only two employees of the Bio-LaBattery Housing Authority. Now they're looking for any type of personal property or anything related to this. This is going to be a ongoing thing for sure. I remember in a former article there was like 50,000 for 2 trucks, and nobody ever saw the trucks. The newly appointed members Huddleston and Wilson were each awarded a $69,000 in bonuses last February. On top of all this, the county sheriff for Mobile, or not sheriff, Captain Paul Birch, is the one that is on it, and he said that it is fair to say that this is a subliminal message, folks, to those people that I just told you on the board. And it is. It's fair to say that this is an open criminal investigation, and I would encourage former employees or board members that want to get in front of this to contact us, like, immediately. So I hope that Lanyap is going to put this on their series, but Harry's got a real good point. You know, something like this happens in Baldwin County, it might not even make the paper, whereas in Mobile, at least they do take it serious and go after this type of corruption. So we'll have to see. I think they also suspected that there was property of the housing development at their home. So that was a reason for the search warrants, as well as trying to glean any other information. But talk about a sweetheart deal. Wow, that's really something that they can get, you know, that type of a thing approved, and certainly looks like somebody on the board or multiple people on the board might be expecting some type of bonus from that retirement fund.
Hey, Paul, can I play something real quick?
You can.
Go to hell. School officials are now saying Tuberville was upset after the Bearcats took a crushing 20-3 loss against BYU. Still, some students are now calling for Tuberville to be fired. Only 9 on your side caught that moment on video. Our Roseanne Aragon joins us live with the story.
Hey, go to hell! Get a job!
It's a moment now replaying thousands of times.
I'm sorry. It was just too good of a moment to let go by.
I think Jones is going to do far better than people think. I do. I think people are getting fed up with, God, I hope, electing people just on a personality basis or a party basis, whether they're qualified or not looking at what is good for us, you know, what is good for the community. And, you know, electing somebody with no experience whatsoever on a popularity contest is not good for the community or the state.
Speaking of popularity contest, you guys gave me a good book recommendation a while back, and I'm going to give y'all a decent one today.
Okay.
If you got the guts for it. Somebody, a member of my family, bought it and gifted it to me, had it mailed to me. But it's Ted Cruz's
Anarchist Cookbook. Nope.
No, close.
Turner Diaries.
Ted Cruz.
What else can get us kicked off YouTube? Give me another book title.
Ted Cruz, One Vote Away is the name of it. And it's basically, he rushed out a book on why it's important for us to have conservative judges on the Supreme Court. And so I'm about halfway through it. And Harry, you probably understand this. It's basically a book about Ted Cruz's legal practice. And while I despise Ted Cruz as a politician, as a lawyer, he ain't fucking half bad, to be honest with you. And it's basically, he talks about all the cases that he's argued before the Supreme Court, because before he was a politician, he was the lawyer that argued Texas cases before the Supreme Court. That was
Solicitor
his job.
General for the state of Texas.
Yeah,
That's a totally political job, by the way, Range. Totally creepy.
I understand that.
Sorry,
before he served
politician.
elected office, what I meant to say. And this is about the cases he argued for, again, in front of the Supreme Court, and why we need conservative judges like Antonin Scalia on the Supreme Court. And while to a degree, I would agree with that, in that we need to have a balance. But Harry, you're an attorney, and you're well versed in law school, or at least I guess whatever correspondence.
I passed the bar somehow.
Right.
Mysteriously.
Ted Cruz in this book, what I find intriguing about it is that he balances his arguments between Establishment Clause and Free Exercise Clause pretty evenly. And anybody that studies the law knows that establishment clause and free exercise clause are always against each other. Most things. Those are the two parts of the First Amendment that establish freedom of religion in this country. And the two of them are often at odds with each other. But Ted Cruz does a pretty good job. And the reason it's taking me so long to read this book is I go back and read the briefs and I read the opinions of all the cases that he cites in the book. And I'll make a dirty, gross confession to y'all. While I am voting for the Democrat in this election, I am not a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. And one of the reasons I'm not a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat is because I am for school choice, and I always have been.
All right,
I was pro school choice back when it was called the voucher system.
So let me. I didn't know that I was going to do this time, but it's a really good time to break into this. So talking about politics and the three pillars: libertarianism, progressivism, and conservatism. Libertarians are don't tell me what to do, right?
Correct.
Progressives won't stand for oppression. They don't mind a little coercion, but disenfranchisement by power is what progressives are all about. And then the conservatives want to conserve our history, country, culture, way of life, or at least that's their spin on things, right?
Whoa. Before you go a lot further, you're talking about let's put these all in a barrel of apples and you just threw an orange.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm just saying conservative, of course, they the problem with this whole wrinkle is the inherited wealth supposition.
Let's hear Rain's version.
Let's make it like this.
No. But what I'm saying is even in like I can't say Reigns is a progressive and holds none of the attributes of a libertarian. That's just not true. Nor is it true of any of the three of us that we fit any of these categories. There's a part of me that's very libertarian. There's a part of me that's very progressive, and there's a part of me that's very conservative.
That's independent.
Well, I would agree to that. Let's call them what they are. All right, and this is a real quick and easy way to remember it. The left, tax, spend. The right, don't tax, don't spend. Libertarians, I'm not paying taxes. That's literally it. I don't care which one of you taxes me. I'm not paying taxes. That's basically the three political, the triangle of that particular policy, and you can see where you lay. You can lay right dead in the middle of that triangle and still be valid. Because it's like you said, I've been a libertarian since I learned what libertarians were. I've been a member of the Libertarian Party since I was 21 years old. And I'm not 21 anymore, as most of y'all can tell. I've been a libertarian for a long time. I'm a registered libertarian. I'm a delegate in the state of Texas.
But you don't believe in postmodernism or the critical race, the theory where everything's oppressor versus the oppressed.
Correct.
You don't see that either.
I'm not a true libertarian because I believe in environmental regulation.
Absolutely.
That's what I've felt. That's why I'm no longer.
Or zoning, where nobody wants zoning until Paul Ripp buys the place next door and decides to put in a damn 10,000 head cattle farm or a slaughterhouse or a chicken chicken house.
It's gotta affect somebody for them to like or think about zoning.
Right.
So I understand we need a balance of all these things, but the idea that you're gonna grab onto one and that's gonna be the hill the conservative hill that I die on. I agree that Judge Scalia was a strict constructionist, and there are some places where we need to stick with strict construction. And we talked about this before. They removed the bust of the judge who decided the Dred Scott hearing and the Dred Scott case, and I could just tell you how many times did women's suffrage come up and get knocked down? At least a dozen. So I don't know what the right balance is, but these people on the Supreme Court control your life. They control your life, and it's super important. Probably one of the most important things. And let me say this. Regardless of who is in power, the president has a responsibility to nominate when there's a vacancy, and the Senate has an obligation to interview those people. Period.
Correct.
Period.
Absolutely, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Okay. Well, that's where the strict constructionist comes in, and then you have the Kagans on the court who say, well, I mean, it was a good framework, but people had no idea of the concept of cryptocurrency in 1776.
That's
I mean,
true.
I understand we have to evolve.
The thing that Cruz is doing in this book, and I don't think he meant to, but he's trying to get across the point that we need conservative justices. And so that's why I'm going to make sure that I hear this Amy Coney Barrett nomination. But what he fights against in the book is putting a judge on the court as a one-trick pony. He says it specifically, we should never put a judge on the court simply to overturn one decision.
Correct.
And that's what the Amy Coney Bryant nomination is for. They basically want to overturn Roe v. Wade. And that's it. And if I was a Supreme Court justice, I would not want to be, my legacy be the only reason I was put on the Supreme Court was to overturn a single decision. I think that's a horrible way to be.
Yeah,
would you want to do that?
Well,
No.
I mean, because the case he made was about David Souter. You know, they put David Souter on the court to be a one-note guy, and guess what? He turned out to be a pretty left-leaning, right-wing judge. And he talked about his arguments that he had when he went to argue school choice in front of the Supreme Court. Their entire strategy was built around how do we counter Justice Sandra Day O'Connor's dissent on this. And he presented his case, and in the end, O'Connor didn't dissent because she ruled on the law. And he was blown away by that. And I was blown away by it too. I said, you know, you don't want to go up against one-note judges. And yet they're framing this Bryant appointment as simply a one-note thing. They don't care about what she's going to do 10, 20 years from now. They want her to be one note for this election. And if I was the judicial nominee for the Supreme Court, I'd refuse it if they wanted me to be that. Because she may be, but do you want that to be your legacy? I was put on there to be a one-trick pony by the worst American president because he wanted to win an election.
Okay, so let me tell you what would happen if I was a senator. I would ask her about three concepts: fairness. We want a fair, free, and equitable society, right? Well, we want fair and free, and we want to aspire to be equal. But we don't want to create a situation where we need a policeman on every street corner to make sure that everybody everybody got their allotment of toilet paper this week. Not that kind of equal. You see what I mean? Anyway, enough soapboxing.
Right.
Let's let Mr. Ripp have the last word. What you got, Paul?
I got a lot of comments this week, emails about the toll road and a new toll road on the expressway. And a lot of them were that, a lot of investors and people that want to develop along that road are the ones promoting the road.
Who don't care anything about the
Correct.
ecology.
They don't care anything about evacuation, ecology, or anything else. So their whole motivation for the toll road is money, money, money. And it also is going to take away a good bit of traffic on 59, which is good and bad. 98, which is good and bad. And I think the bad outweighs the good. So I'm pretty skeptical. I think they're going to build a toll road, come up with the money for it. We don't need toll roads. We said we didn't want a toll road in the beginning. Now we're going to say, oh, well, we'll take a toll road if the tourists pay for it. Well, what kind of taste does that leave in the tourist's mouth that before they even get to where they're going, they have to pay to get there?
And what kind of fallout is it going to be for all the little towns that are bypassed on 59?
Right. That's what I mean. There's a lot of infrastructure on 59 that depends on that traffic.
So do me a favor and describe. So you were coming back through Malbus to get up here.
Correct.
And you were telling me that both sides of the road were just up.
In Lake Charles this morning, I heard a city representative there talk about that they had picked up 1.5 million cubic feet of debris. 1.5 million, and they're still not through. Well, I know one place I saw on 13 that was almost a quarter mile long, say 8 or 9 feet tall, 10 feet wide, from one end to the other. and the amount of devastation in the county as far as the trees go is just mind-boggling. So I'm going to be real curious to find out what type of estimation they're going to have on picking this all up, because, I mean, really, Raines, it is, when you drive around and you see the totality of it from Gulf Shores all the way up here, you just can't imagine how many trucks it's going to take, to do this. But
and we can't burn down. We can't burn until November 1st because of air quality issues we have because of the humidity.
Well, I don't think you can lift that type of a ban either, unless you're in quite a rural area, because you're going to have people in subdivisions, burning, and you can't have that either. And air quality, you have everybody burning at one time.
You do not want, and we talked about this earlier in the program, but I'll just say it on air for the record. You do not want massive piles of hurricane debris, whether they just be wood or not, being burned.
Right.
You don't want that. That is
too much.
That will destroy your air quality for miles and miles and miles around.
Yeah.
It's worse than a forest fire because it lasts so long.
Right.
And the reason you got this humidity burn ban and everything is because if you light a bonfire, it's going to smolder for days unless it's put out.
That's
well,
and so if you've got a square mile that's piled 20 feet high with just limb debris from a hurricane, and you light that on fire, good grief, man! It's the air quality is gonna be better in that city in Pennsylvania that's had a mine fire for the last 100 years.
Hey, Paul, the mega site,
right?
That 100-acre site that they skint the dirt out there and made a 100-acre pad.
Right.
That would be a great place to stockpile all this.
You'd think they would do something with it, but people in Baldwin County are going to have to be patient, because this isn't happening real quick. I don't. You're going to see remnants of this storm a year from now, easily. But everyone be safe. Wear a mask. It's not a hoax, folks.
I sure hope not. So, Raines, what's going on this weekend?
Going to see about going to Lake Charles to help out if I can.
And when is this storm supposed to be out of there where you can go respond?
Tomorrow afternoon, supposedly.
All right. Well, we're sure praying for those folks. How about you, Paul?
Yes, definitely, and everybody here.
But you ain't gonna send them your chainsaw and your generator, are you?
I'm still using it.
All right. Y'all have a good weekend.
All right.
I'm John McAfee. I'm the guy that was accused of murder in Belize and ran into Guatemala. The FBI is going to be looking for me if you don't call him, sir.
The FBI? When John came up with antiviral software, 90% of the people weren't even aware of viruses.
By 1993, McAfee controlled 67% of the desktop antivirus market.
When he first came into the country, he was very friendly.
He donated a considerable amount of equipment to police.
If you're giving donations to the police, are there some motives behind that?
He was getting paranoid. I started to see more and more security people.
He had guys with criminal records, give them gun.
I think he really wanted to create a cult or a mystique like Colonel Kurtz. And here he is in the heart of darkness.
How many girlfriends did he have?
At least 5 or 6 girls.
I do have teenage girlfriends, and many at a time.
He would talk about his hitmen, how he could have people hurt or killed. And he brought me 2 pills and a glass of orange juice. And I woke up dizzy, and he was standing over me naked. He went from 0 to crazy in like 2 seconds.
David broke into John's home and stole stuff.
So John asked me if I could bring 3 guys up here, slap him up, teach him a little respect.
Before torture, they knife cut him up, stabbed him in the mouth and the face.
And then he died.
John's dogs ran on the beach, and they were really ferocious. Greg Fall had it with those dogs and said, I'm going to poison those dogs. Mr. Fall was found dead. He had been executed.
I still can't believe it.
Chan calls me and says, I need you to get me out of the country alive. We just put him on a boat and dump him and land in Guatemala.
I've been running through jungles and rivers and oceans.
Now he's back in the United States. It was as if it hadn't happened. He goes from running away from something to now running for President of the United States.
I don't see how he can lose. I'm serious.
He had apparently gotten away with possible murder and rape, all seemingly without consequence.
He's legitimized himself again.
And I see him regaining that reputation.
Please turn your cameras off.
And he's dangerous.